Wonderful. All right, so having finished up the first 4 sections of this, now it's time to start editing our video. So laying down the rough cut, choosing shots that fit with the client's request. We're going to cut our edits on the action to musical beats to keep that fast-paced flow of energy, and use footage of each university when being mentioned and under the mentioned artists. Any footage that's not at the current frame size of 720p or 1280 pixels wide by 720 tall, we're going to scale it so it fits in there. So I'm going to Command Tab over to Premiere and go back to my editing workspace. And just for kicks, I'm going to right click on this editing workspace and show you that, remember, our whole window workspace is reset to save layout. Well, that shortcut is worth memorizing, Option Shift 0, or if you pop into editing, you can also just right click on it and say reset, and that'll always make it look the way you would expect. Go ahead and reset your workspace so that it looks the way we need to get started. All right. Everybody there, throw me a thumbs up and let's jump ahead. Sweet. Okay, so right now I have added some different markers into here, and markers are great for marking out parts of the song so that you know either the song or the video, so that we know what needs to be in them. Right now you can click them, you can drag them, you can double click them, and they'll open up where we can put information like name the marker specifically, comments, if we were going to make special types of markers, like if we knew we were going to render this out to a DVD or a QuickTime movie that actually has chapters, so you can just click through to specific parts of the video. Then we've got chapter markers there, as well as you can make things like links. So, but you'll notice down at the bottom it says those will only work with compatible output types. Just because I make something a chapter marker, if I export it as a regular QuickTime movie, that may not actually work. Or some things, if I export it with a web link, that marker might get lost because most QuickTime movies wouldn't have functional web links. So, but for now, I actually just want to delete any markers I've made here. So if you've made any, actually, if you haven't, go ahead and make a couple. Just click around in your timeline and hit the M key, and you'll notice it's that simple to go ahead and add a marker to your timeline. Give everybody a second to do that. All right, and now let's go ahead and delete them because we're going to make some markers on purpose. So to delete stuff, anytime you see a menu just magically pop up in the middle of my screen, how did I get that menu there? What did I do, Michael? There's going to be a lot.
Right click.
Right click is almost always going to give us a context sensitive menu. So if I want to know stuff that I could do to this audio clip, I can right click on it and I'm going to see things that I can do to audio clips. If I'm over here in the bin and I want to do something that would be related to the bin, I can right click, and you notice I get a different menu every time. So it's worth doing a little right clicking around in every piece of software that you open up. So I'm actually going to give you 30 seconds to go ahead and just right click, and go ahead and, as you right click, look and see, like, what does that mean? You may or may not know what all of these different options are, but simply knowing that they exist, it's going to start to make connections as we move through the software. You'll be like, oh, that's right, it was like under the menu somewhere, and then you'll go and look for it. So I'm going to throw up this little timer, and under this timer I'll put on 1 minute, and I want you to go right click everywhere you can and see what options come up on the screen and different parts of the screen. See what's different. I'll let this timer run out, and then we will start loading in our video clips. All right, let's go through real quick and review. Now that we've got that, let's review the shortcuts that we learned last time. Click down into your timeline, and let's review what shortcut moves us between the 4 main windows. Shift what? Shift. Somebody, let's go with Isabella. Shortcut to move between our focus between the 4 different windows. Shift, if you had to guess.
Tab.
Close. Shift 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead and practice it. Keep that left thumb on the left command key where y'all are expecting to go. Shift 1, 2, 3, and 4 is going to cycle us between those. All right, real quick, we got to have one more shortcut underneath our belt to be able to jump back and forth between me and whatever we're working on. So if you want to see, for example, the Zoom window and then jump over to Premiere Pro, Emma, what is the shortcut that will toggle you between the all the different open applications?
Is it Command Spacebar?
Command Spacebar will launch Spotlight. That's not quite what
Tab.
we're right. Command Tab. You got it. So everybody practice Command Tab right now. Command Tab over to Zoom so that you can see my face or my screen. Pause for a second. Command Tab back over to Premiere Pro. Command Tab back to Zoom so you can see my screen. Command Tab back to Premiere Pro. Do that 5 times. You want to build that muscle memory so you can quickly jump back and forth between seeing it happen on my screen and seeing it on your own screen. Practice that Command Tab. You will use this all the time. All right, we got this. All right, let's move ahead. Okay, so now we need to go in and start loading up all of our different video clips. So I'm going to come over here and we can open these clips up by simply toggling open the Capture Scratch folder, toggling open the drone footage folder, and we're going to see all of the different clips here for different universities. So we've got MTSU, Fisk, Tennessee State, etc. So what we want to do, let's just practice a couple things. Let's go to this Belmont Drone 1. Okay, go ahead and go to Belmont Drone 1. All right, and what we want to do is simply double click it, and that's going to load it up into our Belmont Drone source monitor right up here. Spacebar will start playback. J, K, and L will fast forward you and rewind. Go ahead and I want you to fast forward and rewind through it for a second. And then we're going to practice doing some in and out point setting and throwing them down here onto our timeline. All right, ready? All right, Command Tab back up here. First, let's lay out our plan for what we're going to put here on the timeline. So I've already gone through and spaced out all of my footage. So I've kind of spaced these audio bits out, and I might end up moving them around. I'm going to come up here to all of these menu or these markers that I made. I'm going to right click on that and right click anywhere up here in the timeline. And I want to choose to clear or delete all selected markers. I want to clear all markers, and that will go ahead and eliminate all the markers in my timeline. If you've made any, go ahead and remove those. And then let's go through, and what I'm going to have you do is, since this is only 1 minute, we're going to go through and we're going to mark out where each university starts, kind of where the conversation happens and what sort of information we want to put there. So watch me do it, since it's only going to take 1 minute, then I'll give you a minute to do it. So I'm going to hit play, and obviously this is
Welcome
intro.
to Rock the Vote at Belmont University, where Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy.
Okay, Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy. So I'm going to hit the M key there because I'm going to want something with all Nashville colleges.
Where Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy. With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist Summer Jade. From Middle Tennessee State University,
Middle Tennessee
Shelter
State University.
From Fisk University, R&B singer-songwriter Lauren McClinton. From Vanderbilt University,
Dandy.
acapella.
I'm going to jump it ahead.
And student performer from Belmont University.
So I'm going to rewind it. So you notice I'm just using J and L. If I'm playing through and I see, oh, this is a Belmont University thing, I just hit the J key to rewind a little bit, and then M to pop in that there's going to be a marker.
And student performer from Belmont University, indie rock and pop artist Annie DeRusso. And Belmont alumni performances. Special guests Bryn Joy and headliners Moon Taxi. With a special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Ryman Hospitality Properties, and event partner, Rock the Vote.
Okay.
And now, a few words from Belmont President Bob Fisher.
Nice. All right, so that even timed out well on my music. So let me throw 1 minute up here, and I want you to go through and add your markers wherever those lines are starting. If you need to, just hit the J key to rewind for a second until you get to right at the beginning of the line you need. Hit the M key and mark it in. Take 1 minute, knock it out. Raise a hand if you need any help. Looking around the room. How's it going? You got them marked? Okay, all right. You can go ahead and finish those markers later. Go ahead and hit the left arrow or the home key if you've got a whole-size keyboard. If you don't have a full-size keyboard and you're on a MacBook like me, hold the function key down in the lower left-hand corner and the left arrow, and that's going to toggle you all the way back to the beginning of your edit. If you're still with me, throw me a thumbs up, and then let's go ahead and start loading in these video clips. Sweet. All right, so with the first Belmont drone, since the first thing we hear about in this video is the Belmont
Welcome to Rock the Vote at Belmont University.
Awesome. So let's go through these clips and see if we can find an interesting one to start this with. You don't have to choose the same one as I do, but it's as simple as double clicking on one to load it up in here. Then I'll hit the space bar to play it through. I like to watch it and see, okay, what's the action that's happening? Is there action that's filling the frame like we talked about the first or second day of class? Because in this case, what's the action filling the frame? What's the main piece of action? Jake, what do you say?
I'm sorry, I was still looking at my markers. Could you repeat the question?
Yep. What's the main piece of action in this particular piece of footage?
The bell tower?
Absolutely. That bell tower is the thing I want to stay focused on. Now, if I start it way back here, there's a fair amount of like a few seconds with no bell tower actually happening. And so since we want to keep it centered on the action, what I'm going to do is set some in and out points on this clip so that I have a place to start. So what I'm going to do is using my J, K, and L to play, stop, fast forward, and my space bar, of course. I'm going to hit play, and right when I see that action come in, I'm going to just use either my J key to move back slightly. You see I'm here about 1 second in, and I'm going to hit the in point with the I key. That's going to set an in point on my footage. So whichever one you like, go through and load them up, see if you can find some interesting action. And I want whatever you find the action happening, I want you to set the in points. Like right here, this is not a particularly interesting clip after it moves past the building. Right there, it's actually pretty good, but as soon as it moves past the building, then it's kind of like not even important. So in this case, I would actually set an out point because there's kind of nothing interesting happening here. So I'd set an out point because I don't need this part of the clip. So go ahead and find yourself one clip, set its in point, and then what we're going to do is start to use our insert and our overwrite edits. So coming back here, I kind of want it to appear right here where this music starts. So I can do one of two kinds of edits to put it into this track below, an insert or an overwrite. Notice what's the shortcut, Oriana, what's the shortcut for an insert edit?
Isn't it Command I?
Close. That would be import. But if you look at it on my screen right now, insert, it's got the shortcut right next to it. What is the shortcut? You can also check on your own screen.
Yes, I can.
There you go. What's that shortcut? Anybody else? She's looking. Comma, thank you. If you look at that, it says insert comma, or the other one right beside it is an overwrite, which the shortcut is what? Period. Yeah. So here's the difference between them. Look at the insert. With insert, you can actually see this clip that's been split by the clip that's going down into it. So if I hit insert or the comma key, you'll notice it's going to put this clip into down here into this timeline, and it's going to put it on whichever track has this V1 placed beside it. So if you wanted it to go up in this top track, you'd put it right there, and I hit insert, and you notice it's going to ask me, it says, wait, where do you want to put this here on the timeline? That's because if you look at my timeline, do you see how I've got these in and out points set right now? You see this blue line kind of showing that the whole thing is selected, in and out point? Okay, the reason that's there, if I can set, is basically what I can do is set an in and an out point so that the footage will only, for example, go into this section. So if I were to go in and say, well, overwrite this in there, and I overwrite it, notice how that put it only in exactly that section. And how much did it put in? Well, it put in exactly as much. It started with, it matched this endpoint to this endpoint, and then just put it in until it hit that out point. So it probably didn't put in this entire clip, but it started from there, matched it to this endpoint, and moved it down. Watch. So you see, and it put it on the track that I had this V1. So here's how we'd want to build this. Let's go through and do this one piece at a time. I'm going to clear my in and out points on my timeline. You can either right click on it and choose clear in and out if you have them, or you can simply hit Option X. Option X will clear any in and out points. So if you've got any in and out points showing on your timeline, hit Option X and clear those out. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put since this is my base layer of video, I want to patch it to video track 1, source patching for inserts. And I'm going to hit the period key, which is going to go ahead and drop this whole clip in right here on that first track. And there's a reason we're doing it this way. And I will show you why. Okay, so by dropping this in, what I want to do is go in and just build a quick kind of like base layer of video so that there's something at every point along the way. And we're going to build that. And what I like to think of that is I call it the spine. We want to edit the spine of our story. And then we're going to go in and look for more interesting things to add along the way. But right now, if we just build something so there's something in every single piece, we're going to start to get a grasp on whether this is working or whether we need to change stuff, whether we need to add stuff, etc. So we're going to go in and build the spine here. So, but what I want to do is do two things. I want to cut on the action when I can, and I want that action to land on a musical beat. So do you see here in our music that we've got nice clear audio spikes, what we call peaks, every time there's a beat? If you watch it,
where Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy.
So we're going to cut our music or cut our video clips to where they start and end on beats. So I'm going to move this over here right to where that clip is now going to start on this beat right here.
Welcome to Rock the Vote at
Okay, we're getting good.
Belmont University, where Nashville.
Okay, so like there's the closest beat to where that ends. So I'm going to use my trim tool and I'm just going to trim that over right there to where it ends. Go drop in your first clip and trim it to where it starts and ends on a beat. Take 1 minute to do it and then come back. We'll build the rest of this spine. All right, how many of you got at least that first clip in? Throw me a thumbs up if you got one in. If you're struggling in any way, I want to know. Okay, we'll come back. So here's what we want to do. Let's go through this now, and we're going to do a couple related things. The next clip,
where Nashville colleges are united.
You can see, hopefully in yours, that my beat or this clip is ending right as that beat is happening. Now, what if you're using it and it sounds like it's really close, but it's not dead on? Like, how do we continue to tweak this to where it lands dead on the beat? Well, when I come into my clip, if I zoom in here, let's go ahead and use the zoom shortcuts. What's the zoom shortcut, Ashley, to zoom in horizontally on our video so we get closer and closer to the edge of the video?
The plus.
Plus and minus, right. And if you look, all of these shortcuts are on our shortcut list here on the course schedule. You should always have those open if you're still learning the shortcuts, because this is going to be essential. So in our case, go ahead. I'm going to click on the edge of this clip. And in this case, what I'd like to do is I notice that it actually ends about 1 frame too early. Of course, I could hover with my mouse and just click and drag it over, or the shortcut actually nudge that edge is Alt, left, or right. So when I select this edge, the Option key or Alt key and the left and right will sit there and extend that for us. So we don't have to use an imprecise method like our mouse. There's nothing wrong with it. But once you get used to using this Alt, left, and right, we will use it more and more and more. So it's really worth knowing. And I'm going to extend it to where it ends right there on that beat. Now, I'm going to hit the down arrow. And that's going to, notice what happens with the up and down arrow. What's happening when we hit the up and down arrow in this case? Let's go to Laura. Laura, what's happening when we hit the up and down arrow? Looks like Laura might be absent from class. Grace.
So I was doing my Premiere as well. Could you repeat the
Okay.
question
What
one more
happens
time?
when you hit the up and down arrow on your timeline? What's it doing right there?
It's moving you from different clips and different
Yeah.
pieces of
What
the
it's
video.
exactly what it's doing is it'll move to the edges of the clip of anything that has this what we call track patch selected. So right here we've got this V1, and since that's turned on, we hit up and down, it's going to stop at any edge on this track. What about the next one? Well, as soon as I go down, you notice it jumps to that clip because this A2 is turned on. If I turn to that off, watch what happens now. I hit to this one, I go to this one, and then it jumps all the way to the end of this one because this one has a track selected, but this one doesn't. Most of the time, I just turn all of these on, but as you get to where you've got lots of little clips, then that might get to be a little bit annoying to have it, you know, sit there and stop along the way at like 1,000 little edits. So as you get into more and more edits, you might just build the spine down here so we can quickly move between the main clips. All right, so now come back to this clip edge. I think I just deleted it. There it is. Okay. And I'm going to set my endpoint right here so that I've got an endpoint for the next clip that I can drop in. So it's going to drop it in right here. Go ahead and set your endpoint and come load up another clip. I'm going to use another Belmont clip, but I want to find something that seems like it might be able to represent all the universities. It's kind of cool. This one's kind of interesting. I might want to end with that one. Okay, but this one's good. And thing is, there's no action, no action, no action. Aha, there it is. So I'm going to rewind just a little bit, maybe get right to this point and set my endpoint here. So that's going to take this endpoint to where right as we're kind of blowing up into this. And now if I simply do another overwrite, that overwrite with the period key is going to drop it in right at my endpoint. Period, drops it right in. But you notice that was actually a little bit too long. Does everyone see that that was way longer of a clip than I needed? So in this case, what I'd like to do is actually, I want to tell it how long it needs to go. Where did the next marker come in? Everybody see that next marker right there? So what I can do is come in and say,
With perform.
Okay, that is where I want it to end. So I only want my clip, however much of it is here, I want it to drop in and start from there. And then I want it to just put as much of it in until it hits this out point. I want you to go do the exact same thing. Come down to your timeline, set an in point right after the other one, and then go to where it needs to end and set an out point with the O key. This is what we call 3-point editing, and it's a foundation of video editing. I'll put a minute on the board. Raise a hand if you need help. Isabella, are you asking a question? No. All right. Everybody got an in and out point set on their timeline? So now watch the benefit of doing that. I know that this endpoint is where I want this footage to come in. So now all I have to do is hit that overwrite. And when I do hit that overwrite, hit that period key, notice it dropped it right in. It took the endpoint, it matched it to the endpoint right here, and then it just filled in that gap as much as it needed to until it got to probably somewhere right around here. And because the out point was set, it's already done. So now I could go through and do the same thing, quickly laying down a timeline and just sticking in at least one piece of footage from every one of the universities. So let's go through and see what this says.
With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist Summer Jade. From
right there. So that's where at this next beat that I heard, I'm going to set my out point, up arrow a couple times and set my in point. And this is from Tennessee State University, I think they said. So I'm going to find this Tennessee State University shot. That's kind of cool. Okay. So fast forward it and see if I can find a little. I like the action right here. Set my endpoint and period. Boom. Drops it right in. So here's your steps. We're going to set in and out points on our timeline. Go and load up that clip into it, and then use our overwrite edit to drop it into the timeline.
Middle Tennessee State University, Shelter Cove.
Bump. So right there, there's that. I can even see the little spike. So I use my left and right arrows to get right to where the spike is. Set an out point, up arrow back to the previous place, in point, and from Middle Tennessee State University. It's actually pretty cool. I'm just going to use that one right from the beginning. I like that there's people moving along there. Ooh, but actually we see with Middle Tennessee State University, this clip has multiple pieces inside of it. We've got a long drone shot of the football stadium, and we've got a reasonably small shot or shorter shot of this one that only lasts a couple of seconds, although that's really pretty. So, here's a perfect example. So go ahead and set up your in and out points for MTSU, and then I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced technique, but that I think you're going to like and that will be useful in a pinch on many occasions. Go ahead and take 1 minute and set up your next couple of shots, and then let me show you a special situation here and how we can work with it. I'm going to give you 1 minute. Get caught up to now. Raise a hand if you need any help. You can share your screen. I will keep calling on people randomly throughout the class. All right. Okay, so let's look at this example. Come here with me. Once you've got an in and an out point, should be around 16 or so seconds for your in point and around 20 some seconds for your out point for your Middle Tennessee State line, assuming you chopped up your audio clips in any way similar to mine. But have your in and your out point set, and let me show you a problem that you're going to run into and a unique way to solve it. Everybody with me? Throw me a thumbs up if you're with me. Half of the class. All right, the other half. Good luck. So here's what we want. Let's say I really want this shot, this kind of cool intro shot of that university, but it only is, if you look here at the time code, you see that it's only about 2 minutes and 2 seconds and 12 frames long. Well, just coming down here and looking, the shot would start at about 16 seconds and need to go 20 seconds. So it's 4 seconds that I need to fill in, right? So I need to fill up 4 seconds, but this shot that I want is only 2. Now I could just let it cut immediately over to this. There's nothing wrong with that. I could, but what if I wanted it to just be this shot? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the O key, and that's going to set an out point right there. And you'll see this in point is automatically at the beginning. Since I've set an out point only, it assumes the beginning of the clip is the in point. Go ahead and do the same thing. This is that MTSU drone 4 clip. And notice what I'm wanting to do is I want to end up kind of treating this like its own clip. So what we're going to do is create what they call a subclip. In other words, it'll appear down here almost like its own clip, but it'll really just be a subsection of an existing bigger clip. To do that, now that we've got this in and out point set, we're going to hit Command U, and that's going to come up with this make subclip, and it's called MTSU drone 4 move subclip. I'm just going to leave that name in place and hit OK. And you'll see that it shows up down here in your bin, in your project bin. So MTSU drone 4, since it's got the same name, but notice that it's showing that it's got a little in point and an out point, those little brackets on the side. So that's letting me know that it's actually just a subsection of this other clip. But if I double click it, you'll notice it treats it just like it's one single clip. It loaded up here. It doesn't show you all the rest of the stuff off to the side, but it's going to let us treat this as its own individual clip. So I want you to go ahead and make a subclip of that one, and we could always rename this, and I'm just going to call this MTSU drone 4 dash, and I'm going to call this maybe building, because it's kind of pretty like that. It's a building.
Sorry, was that Command U?
Command U, or if you're on Windows, I think it's Control U, but Command U will pop up the make subclip window. And when you make it, then you'll be able to find that particular thing. The reason you would do this is you don't want to, a lot of times you might shoot a bunch of footage. Maybe you're going around and you're shooting different shots, and they're just all in one gigantic, long, maybe 5-minute piece of footage. So how do you go through and separate that out and have all the best little bits as little clips that you can grab? Well, you go through and you make subclips of them, give them their own names, and now you can always find them. Because what you would not want to do is have a 5-minute long clip that every time you want a great little section from it, you're having to like find that little piece again, set in and out markers, drag it down. So by making subclips, you can easily find just the best bits and go from there. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right, so now here's our problem though. What's going to happen if I do an overwrite edit of this subclip? If I load this subclip in and I do an overwrite down here, what's going to happen? Because it's only 2 seconds long, and this is 4 seconds of in and out. Let's try it. I'm going to hit the period key, and what's it say? It says, well, you can, but the source, this one, 2 seconds clip, is shorter than the destination. This part, 4 seconds clip. So I can do a couple things. Ignore the sequence. Remember, this is our sequence down here. You can ignore this out point, in which case it'll do the in to the out, but it's just going to ignore this out point. Watch what happens if I do that. So it ignored that out point and it just put in as much of the clip as it could. I'm going to undo and do it again. Period. Now it says ignore sequence in point. So if I say ignore sequence in point, it's going to take this out and match it, and it'll just leave a gap here in the front. See, so it just left a gap. Now, also though, what happened to my audio? Grace, what happened to my audio here when I dropped that clip in with an overwrite?
It muted it so you don't hear it.
Well, it didn't mute it. It dropped in. This clip has both video and audio. See that in the little audio clip? So this TSU drone, for example, is video only. These have video and audio. The icon is showing us that. So in this case, I didn't want to overwrite this audio right here. So I'm going to undo that. And so what do I need to do to make sure that no audio is written from my source clip? I could do a couple things. I could either turn this off and patch that audio down to this track. Now, if I do it, you see it puts it in, but it moves the audio down to that lower track, or I can simply turn it off because I don't really need the audio from these drone shots. They're not really doing anything. It's just, I've got my music, I've got my voiceover, so I really only want the video. So if I simply turn off all that patch for the audio, now I can hit period, and I can ignore source endpoint, sequence endpoint, etc. But now I've got my clip, I'm ready to go. I've got my building, and this is the last one I could do. I'm going to do an overwrite, and now I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we slow down this clip? Since it's only 2 seconds, what if you slowed it down by 50% so that it fits the whole section? So if I hit OK now, boom, it drops in that clip. It made it fit. It stretched it until it fit the in point and the out point, and now you can see that it's playing back at what speed, Anna Lee? Right there next to the name.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing it.
Hard time reading. It's at 60.4%.
60.4, yeah.
So it slowed it down to 60%. I'm gonna hit the up arrow a few times and see if that now, it might look too funky if it's slowed down too much, but this shot wasn't really moving, so it might look okay. Let's see.
With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist Summer Jade, from Middle Tennessee State University, Shelter Cove.
It's actually not bad. Those kids are moving, the students walking through are moving kind of slow, but
Middle Tennessee State University, Shelter Cove.
It's kind of working. Now, the alternative is I'm just going to leave that alone right there for now. And I want you to all go through and take the next few minutes, and I'm going to set my in points and my out points and lay down the spine of my track. So I set my endpoint right after the last one.
Singer-songwriter Lauren McClinton.
Ready with the out point?
From Vanderbilt University.
Boom. So let's see.
From Vanderbilt University.
I kind of like
songwriter Lauren McClinton. From Vanderbilt University. Acapella.
Let's see.
R&B singer-songwriter Lauren McClinton.
I probably start it right there. So set my out point, Lauren McClinton. And that's from Vanderbilt. Come to Vanderbilt, load up a shot. This one even says Vanderbilt on it. I love it. Set my endpoint here right as Vanderbilt is getting big. I don't need to set an out point. I can simply hit the period key, and I'm going to ignore, let's see, the source is shorter than destination. Oops. So maybe I need to keep the whole thing. So now, period, and it drops it right in. So everybody I'm going to give you, let's see, since this is only a 1 minute clip, I'm going to give you, let's start with 3 or 4 minutes so you can go through and add your clips into the timeline. Now, the reason I've taught you all this, and I haven't even mentioned how to do it with the mouse, is because the mouse is a fine way to edit if you're not working in a professional environment. In fact, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second, because let's talk about this. Why would it be important that you learn how to do it the way that professional editors are going to do it? Let's go to Becca. Why would that be important that you learn how to do this with the shortcuts and using the tools that are available?
You can execute it a lot quicker.
Ultimately, you will be able to. If you look at my screen, if I was to do this all just kind of I like to maybe just call it the amateur way. You know, if I said, okay, I need some sort of piece of footage right here for Vanderbilt. And I just came over and I was kind of looking at the pieces of footage. And then I just dragged them over and dropped them in and then trimmed them back. Number one, I need to turn on snapping. And then I popped it in there. Oops. With a mouse, it's very easy to be imprecise. Like, shoot, I'm covering up other pieces and then I'm trying to put it in place. Oops, I still trimmed off something. So I get that in place and then I kind of trim this until it's fitting. So like, there's nothing wrong with that when you're dealing with a couple clips. It's not that you'll never use your mouse, but as we start working with hundreds or thousands of files in a professional setting, being able to be very precise and do it faster or as fast at least, actually you'll be able to move much faster with your keyboard only than you will with the mouse. And if you think about it, if you land in, let's say, an internship or an opportunity to work on something, if you're sitting there moving with your mouse, you're typically going to be working at about half the speed at best as somebody that's really learned how to do it with their keyboard. And so if you come in for that internship and another person comes in for that internship and you're both getting, just like doing whatever opportunity you can, if one of you is twice as fast as the next, only one person is going to still be employed at the end of that internship. So by learning these things and practicing them now, you're just building the right habits early on. So I'll put 3 minutes on the board here, and I want you to go through and practice those. Try to get an entire spine laid down, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. So you might just mute my audio for a second, or actually I can just kill my audio so that you won't be hearing it, and I can just go ahead and finish editing. So I'm going to put 4 minutes on the board and lay down your entire spine.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How do we slow down the video again?
So we can do a couple things. For the most part, I would say we don't want to slow down footage too much. I wanted to show it right there because it was such a short clip and because there's really not much moving on the screen.
Yeah.
But if you try to slow down something like this, there's a couple ways. We could either just right click on it and choose speed and duration. And then if we slowed it down to say 50%, you'll see that it's now taking twice as long. But if you watch that play back, you'll see it's very jerky because it just went from this Vanderbilt drone with 30 frames per second. And at 50%, how many frames per second is it playing?
15.
15, which is a lot slower than even the slowest frame rate of 24.
Yeah.
So if you play that back, you're going to see the footage is kind of jerky.
From Fisk University, R&B singer-songwriter.
You may not see it on Zoom, but if you do it with your own, you'll see that it's really kind of loses some quality. It's not as visible on clips where there's very little movement. It's very visible on clips where a lot of things are moving. So we will get to, when we start shooting video, we will see why we'd use, like on your phone, you have the option of shooting at 60 frames per second. And if you shoot, for example, on your phone at 60, then you can slow that down to 30 frames a second, no problem, and still you'll have twice as many frames. The clip will last twice as long. You can slow it down even to 24 frames a second, and it still is going to look great. But if we're starting with something at 30, we don't have a whole lot we could slow it down.
Okay.
Make
Thank you.
sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Good stuff. All right, so I'm going to undo that. I will turn off my audio, and I'm going to go through and lay down my spine. You guys do the same. All right. Everybody with me still? Getting it laid in? Okay, pop back to me just for a second. I'm going to give you a little more time, but I want to show you a few tricks that you will use along the way, shortcuts that make everything in life easier for this. So what I've done is I dropped a couple different clips in here, and I just used a lot of these up and down arrows, and every time I want to clear those in and out points. Go ahead and make a couple in and out points, and then clear them with Option X real quick. You'll use in and out points a lot, and then Option X to clear them out. So practice that just so you can get comfortable with this whole concept of in, out, and then Option X to clear it out when you want. All right. Now, looking at this, I want you to see there's a few different things. Like, for example, I just dropped in this long piece of footage here at the end. Boom. So like right there, I wanted to end this clip, but I've got a bunch of excess footage right here. So I'm looking at this downbeat right where she says, now, you know, a special word from Bob Fisher. Okay, so if I hit play, oh wait, you guys can't hear my audio. Always let me know if you can't hear or if you can't see my screen.
Partner, rock the vote.
Boom.
And now, a few.
Okay, so right there where she says, and now. So I'm gonna just use my left arrow to come back over here. And notice I'm gonna put it right there in front of that downbeat. See that big spike right there in the audio? Okay, so I've got it right there. And so now for trimming our clips on our timeline on whichever track is selected right here, so right now video 1, you can use 2 shortcuts to trim these things. Since my left hand is already sitting where my left command key is, the Q key, I want you to put your playhead in the middle of a clip real quick and hit the Q key. And what happened with the Q key? Anyone tell me?
You cut the video in 2 different videos.
Right, it cuts it and it would trim. Well, Q actually trims the audio from the left-hand side and ripples everything back. It can be a little dangerous. So it's really useful if we don't have a bunch of stuff here on our audio tracks. But right now, if I hit Q, you notice it's cutting that off and it's trimming everything back. So unless I wanted to come in here and physically click this lock button so the audio doesn't get messed with.
To our presenting sponsor. And now.
Then popping in right here and hitting the Q key trims off the front and slides it back. But what I really want in this case, right there, is I actually just want to trim the end off. I want to trim the end off of this clip. And if I hit the W key, that trims not only it off, but it's trimming off all these audio tracks. So if I knew my audio was already good, I'm actually going to come over here and usually lock it so that none of these other functions I do is going to mess with my audio. So now I can hit the W key, and what the W key does is it basically just trims the end off back to wherever your playhead is. So the W key would just trim that right off and is really handy, and so we use that a lot.
Rock the vote.
Bump. So there's it's at, and then W just trims it right off. But I wanted to warn you and show you, because if you don't have those audio clips locked, it's going to lop off all of the audio clips too. So are things on other tracks. But this is a great way of being able to do this. I'm just going to find one last clip to end it. Oh, that's a pretty clip. I like the way this one is. I'm going to clear the in and out points with Option X. So you see those in and out points went away. Option X. And then I think that's a pretty one to start. So I'm just going to come down here to this track, set my in point, leave my out point alone because I just want this to go as long as it will. Hit the period key and oops, it goes on a little too long. No big deal. I could always just set the in point, come down here.
And now, viewers of Belmont President Bob Fisher.
And set the out point wherever I want, and then period is just going to drop it in. So at this point, if I minus out, I've got a timeline with essentially a spine. I've got something happening at every key point.
Welcome to Rock the Vote at Belmont University, where Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy. With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist Summer Jade, from Middle Tennessee State University, Shelter Cove, from Fisk University, R&B singer-songwriter Lauren McClinton, from Vanderbilt University, a cappella group The Melodors, and student performer from Belmont University, indie rock and pop artist Annie DeRusso. And Belmont alumni performances from special...
The only thing is right there, that last one did not end on the beat. In fact, musically, it was just at a random place.
And Belmont alumni performances from.
So I probably want it right here, either on her and or at the closest beat right here, this closest downbeat. So a trick is, if I trim that back, this one doesn't have any extra footage to fill in this space. So I could either try to just put that in place and then come in and switch to my rate stretch tool. So if I come over to my tools here, not track select, if I come to my ripple tool and go down to rate stretch, this one is really close, but rate stretch, if I come to the side, it gives me a trim tool with this little funky double-headed arrow. And now if I stretch it and let go, you see it's playing back just slightly slower. Back to Becca's question, because there's another way to slow down your clip. So I just slowed it down barely to 86%. So, and since it was the 30 frame per second clip, that probably brought it down to like 24 frames a second. So it might look fine. Let's see.
And Belmont alumni performances from special guest Bryn Joy and headliners Moon Taxi. With a special thanks to our presenting.
Works pretty good. So if you're going to slow things down a little bit, it's probably going to be okay, especially if they're clips that were shot at 30 frames a second. If you slow down any clips shot at 24 frames a second, you're probably going to be able to see it. It probably is not going to look good. Now, I do want to point this out. When you look up here at your program monitor, when you're watching this, right now, things look probably pretty grungy on my screen and maybe on yours, and that's because of this right here. In order to get the best playback performance, I'm set to, it's only playing back 1/4 of the resolution. That makes it easier on my computer to run, but it also makes it look kind of grungy when it's here on this screen. So if I wanted to see the full quality, I could switch it to full and just see how that's going to look now.
And Belmont alumni performances from special guest Bryn Joy and headliners Moon Taxi. With a special thanks to our presenting.
Nice, and everything's happening right on the beat. Now, also remember that if you want to, you can hit this tilde key right above your tab key to quickly throw your screen up to kind of a full screen version. So kind of like we did in Photoshop with the F key, but this will let us watch it in a little
Belmont
bit better
alumni
glory.
Performances from special guest Bryn Joy and headliners Moon Taxi. With a special thanks to our presenting.
Nice. All right, so I'm going to give you 2 more minutes to finish laying in those clips, and then let's go through and start adding B-roll. So I'll throw up the timer.
Quick question.
Perfect.
So I accidentally cut my audio, like her talking a little too soon, and I already cut and spaced it. How would I like undo?
Great question. All right, so let's say, for example, this clip, I've got it right here, and I accidentally either use my trim tool and I trim it off, or I accidentally just delete the whole thing. Well, the beauty of all this is none of these edits are destructive. So any of these clips still has access to all of the clip right there. All you have to do is just use the trim tool and trim it back out. So if you chopped out any piece on accident, you could always just delete all these others. At the worst case scenario, a second, I've got Siri trying to interrupt me. And then come over here, use your trim tool, just trim it right back out. Answer your question?
Yes.
Super simple. Awesome. All right, take 2 more minutes, and then I want to go in and lay down our B-roll. I'll throw the timer up on the screen. Get as much done as you can. Raise a hand if you need help. All right. Okay, who's with me still? Let's take it up a notch. Let's pop in here and adjust these clips. Let's start to try to either make it a little bit more interesting, add a little bit more variety to it. So in this case, what I want to do is maybe start adding in another layer of some B-roll. So I'm going to switch my video layer up to video track 2 so that any new overwrites I do are going to be overwritten onto this track up here rather than the track down below. This way that it lets us kind of keep our main spine here at the bottom, and then we can add other cutaway shots up here. So I'm going to jump up and back to the beginning, set my video target layer here to video track 2, and
welcome to Rock the Vote at Belmont University, where Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist Summer Jade. From Middle Tennessee State University, Shelter Cove. From Fisk University, R&B singer-songwriter Lauren McClinton. From Vanderbilt University, a cappella group The Melodors, and student performer from Belmont University.
All right, so we could go through and try to make these shots a little more interesting. So for example, here, the Belmont shot at the beginning.
Welcome to Rock the Vote at Belmont University, where Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist.
So we could change that up a little bit.
With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist.
But instead, what I'd like to do is go through now, and with our spine created, let's go ahead and come in and start to use some of our graphic sources and lay those in as B-roll. So we've got logos here. So if we double click on any of these logos, they're going to load up into the timeline. We've also, or into the source panel. If we take these artist photos and double click those, that will also pop them up into the timeline up here above. So let's go through and start to drop those in where they belong. But again, I want to put them onto video layer 2. And so here we go. So I'm just going to play through, and what's it say?
Welcome to Rock the Vote at Belmont University.
Okay, so welcome to Rock the Vote. Okay, so I'm looking for where she says rock. And the quickest way to find stuff is to simply come over and use this filter bin and say rock the vote. And there we go. We see we've got a rock the vote logo and a rock the vote vector logo. So it's up to you, up to which one we want to use. I'm going to just load this one up. I double click it. It puts it up there. You notice it defaults to putting it at about 4 seconds. When I hit my period key, it just dropped it in right there on my second track and is ready to just be trimmed back to this point.
Welcome to Rock the Vote at Belmont University.
Now it's a little huge and ridiculous.
Where Nashville College. Welcome to Rock the Vote at Belmont University.
Then I want it out maybe by there. I just want it up for a minute.
To Rock the Vote at Belmont University.
Now it's completely obscuring this, but I'm just going to put it and go for timing first.
Nashville colleges are uniting to celebrate democracy.
Are uniting.
With performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist Summer Jade.
Okay, so I'm looking for places where those beats are happening.
Tennessee State University, spoken word artist Summer Jade.
Okay.
Performers from Tennessee State University, spoken word artist
Summer Jade. So right before she says Summer Jade, I'm going to come over here and find Summer. Summer Jade, load it up into the viewer, hit period, and it's going to drop it down there. Now, I'm just going to trim it back to keep things simple for now.
Artist Summer Jade. From Middle Tennessee State University, Shelter.
Okay, so
State University, Shelter Cove.
Okay, so I can set my endpoint. That'll make things simple there. And I need Shelter Cove. Okay, so we're going to go through and drop these in and add their clips all the way along. So go ahead and take the next 3 minutes and find good spots to add in any graphics and logos, either when they mention the sponsor or they mention the artist. And we're going to do it right about the time that they actually say the name of the artist.
University, Shelter Cove.
Okay, and then we're going to come through and manipulate all these to fit. But for now, go through and just add in all of these upper level graphics.
R&B singer-songwriter Lauren McClinton.
Find the closest.
R&B singer-songwriter Lauren.
Find the closest beat to it, endpoint, etc. Okay, I don't know how to spell Lauren. Lauren McClinton, there she is, period. Drop it in, trim it back. All right, I'm going to kill my audio and take a few minutes to go ahead and do that. Put 4 minutes on here. Raise a hand if you need any help. I'll get you sorted. All right. All right. How's it going? Everybody getting that okay? What questions are you running into? What problems are you experiencing? I'm just going to show you one more little thing today, and we're going to call this good. Questions so far? All right, last thing let's look at then is how do we go in and start to make some adjustments to this? For example, this Rock the Vote logo that I added is obviously way too big and totally swallowing up the screen. So how do we make changes to the size, location, position, etc.? what we want to do is come over to any of the clips, and anything we want to manipulate, we simply double click it so that it loads it back up here into the source viewer. So go ahead and double click on like that first graphic you put in and put it up in the source viewer. We can do this for absolutely anything. We can double click on these audio clips and it'll load them up there. We could double click on these video clips and it'll load them up there. So anything we double click is going to load up into the source viewer. Everybody get that in? And then after you've done that, you'll see to the right in the source viewer the effect controls. The shortcut for that is Shift-5. Shift-5 will take you to effect controls, or they're under the window menu, effect controls. So if you're not seeing it, you can simply go. If you have accidentally closed that panel, for example, Shift-5 will still bring it back up and put it right up here in the source viewer by default. Got it? Okay, throw me a thumbs up. So here's how easy this is. Once you've got it, up here in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see some different options for motion, opacity, time remapping, and everything opens and closes with this little downward pointing arrow beside it. So you can toggle things open and closed. Go ahead and toggle open only effects and click on the word motion itself. When you click on the word motion, do not click on these little toggle animation, these little stopwatches. We'll learn how to use those later too, but for right now, we want to leave those alone. So make sure you're not hitting the toggle animation. If you do turn it on, you're going to notice that it actually adds this little keyframe right here. No problem, just turn it off, and then we'll go ahead and delete the existing keyframes. So if you do accidentally turn it on, just go ahead and turn that off. I say this because somebody does it every single semester. Instead, simply click the word motion and look over here on the side. What do you get? Well, this Rock the Vote logo now has little bounding boxes that let us click to drag and resize. If you can't see them, you can come down to the lower left-hand corner where it says fit and drop it down to something like 25 or 50%. And then depending on how big your screen is, then you'll be able to see those missing things. So, oops, cancel. So simply select the word motion, and then you can resize it. For now, I'm just going to resize it so that it fits. You can also move it around by clicking somewhere on the graphic. If you click on the middle, though, it looks like that's the place to click and drag, but that's actually what we call a target or an anchor point. So I don't want to move that one. I just want to click anywhere else on the graphic and maybe put it here to the side. And then I'm going to scroll through, and any of these others, I'll do the same thing. So notice right now when I click to this one, if I select Summer Jade, you notice right up here, it switches and it says now it's looking at Summer Jade. Fantastic. Click on motion, come to my corner, resize Summer, maybe put her aside too. Now I can simply go through, I don't even have to double click. I can simply select them and then see if, yep, there we go. It's got the Shelter Cove. Select motion. I do have to have my playhead over it for me to see it, but I don't have to have it over it to select it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in place and maybe just kind of shrink it over here to the side too. Oops, don't want to move my video. All right, so here's what I want you to do before next class. Go through and have your spine laid down, have your audio laid down, and have your overlays of graphics or logos for the companies that you're that they mention in there. We're going to go ahead and make these adjustments and make sure that they're all in your timeline ready to go. I believe the instructions for homework say screenshot of project 2 finished through section 5. And if we look over at what that is, section 5 is laying down the rough cut, choosing shots that fit with the client's request. So we are actually already starting the part of section 6, but just get through section 5, get that all done, and then we'll be able to pick this back up and wrap it up. We might even get through wrapping up the entire project next time, in which case we're moving faster than expected, which is great. All right.